My wife and neighbor were secretly hooking up while I was deployed overseas. So, I set up cameras and exposed them, and they got exactly what they deserved. I'm 32, a military vet, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a decent life. I was married for almost 8 years to Megan, a woman I thought was the love of my life. We had a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood, I had a solid career, and we had plans for the future. I thought I could trust her with everything. Then I found out my life was a complete joke, all because of her and my neighbor Tom. Tom's 35, a so-called family man with 2 kids. His wife Linda is usually away for work, so Megan and I would have him over sometimes. I thought I was doing the guy a favor, including him in dinners and weekends when his family wasn't around. But while I was overseas on deployment, Megan and Tom decided they'd do more than just be friendly neighbors. It started when I got back from my last tour. Megan seemed off, always on edge, and snapping over the smallest things. She'd been spending a lot of money, and I don't mean on groceries or bills. I mean she was buying designer clothes, perfumes, booking fancy dinners for us while I was away, but I'd come back to find those dinner reservations never included me. She had excuses for everything. She acted like I was paranoid when I asked where all our money was going, or why she had suddenly become glued to her phone. If I ever questioned her, I was overreacting or too controlling. So, I tried to ignore it, thinking I was reading too much into things after being gone for so long. Things started feeling strange around the neighborhood too. I heard from some friends that they'd seen Megan out more often, sometimes with someone who wasn't me. I chalked it up to her needing company while I was gone. But then she got obsessive over when I'd call her from overseas, always needing it to be at specific times. She'd say things like, "I'm just really busy tonight," or "Could you call in the morning instead?" Like she was setting rules around when I could check in on her. Then there was Tom. He started showing up around the house way too often. Every time I'd try to call Megan, it seemed like he was there. She'd mention he was helping her with something, but nothing added up. And when I finally got home, I noticed little things, like his shirt hanging in our laundry, or a bottle of his cologne on our bathroom sink. It was too much to ignore. One night, I was on a video call with a friend from the service who specializes in security systems. I explained the situation, and he didn't even hesitate. He said, "Dude, put up some cameras. If nothing's going on, you'll have peace of mind. But if something is going on, you'll know." That hit me. I needed to know. So I did it. I installed cameras around the house. One in the living room, one by the front door, and one in the hallway. It felt wrong, but I had to know what was going on in my own home. I left for a short training right after setting everything up. The first night away, I barely slept. I watched live feeds from the cameras all night, waiting, hoping I'd see nothing. I thought maybe I was crazy, that I'd been away too long and imagined it all. But I was dead wrong. I came back from training a few days later and went through the footage. There was Megan, sneaking Tom in through the back door late at night. I watched as they kissed in our hallway and disappeared into our bedroom. I watched them make themselves at home in the life I'd built. It was like I'd been living in someone else's life, blind to the fact that my own wife had turned into a stranger. They'd been hooking up regularly, right there in my house. The worst part was the way they'd act like it was their own space, like I didn't even exist. There was Tom laughing, joking, relaxing in my living room. And Megan? She looked happier with him than she ever had with me. I wanted to tear down everything in sight, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. I had evidence now, and I was going to make them face what they'd done. I planned it out carefully, making sure every detail was covered. This wasn't going to be a quiet confrontation. They wanted to lie to me and everyone else? Fine. I'd make sure everyone knew exactly what they'd done. I decided to host a family dinner and invited Megan's parents, her sister, a couple of close friends, and of course Linda, Tom's wife. I didn't tell Megan who'd be coming. She just thought it was a typical dinner. She seemed a little nervous, but I figured that was just her guilt eating at her. When everyone arrived, I didn't waste time. I had the video footage ready to play on our TV. As everyone settled in, I stood up and told them all to watch. Megan and Tom looked confused until they saw the footage. Then they went pale. Megan started stammering, trying to come up with excuses, saying things like, "It's not what it looks like, and I can explain." But there was no explaining away what everyone was seeing. Her parents were shocked, sitting there in silence, staring at their daughter like they'd never seen her before. Linda was in tears, completely blindsided. Tom tried to leave, but Linda blocked him, demanding answers. Megan's parents didn't say a word. They just looked at her in total disbelief. She tried to pull her victim act, saying I'd been gone too long, that she was lonely, that I didn't understand. But no one bought it. I looked her straight in the eye and told her, "You could have left. You didn't have to lie to me, to everyone. But you didn't, did you?" She had no response. She knew she was caught. But I wasn't done. Tom had a freelancing business with some prominent local clients, and he prided himself on his respectable image. I reached out to those clients, showing them the footage and explaining the situation. I didn't go into any of the personal details, just the facts. I knew how much he valued his reputation, and I wanted him to feel some of what I'd felt. Within a few days, he'd lost several big clients. His freelancing gigs dried up, and word spread around the neighborhood that he was the guy who'd destroyed 2 families. He called me a few times, left messages begging me to meet up to work things out. I ignored every single one. He'd gotten exactly what he deserved. You'd think after all this, Megan would back off, but no. She kept showing up at the house, trying to convince me we could work through it. She'd come by at weird hours, saying things like, "We've been together so long, you can't throw it all away." She acted like she was the victim, like she deserved a second chance just because of our history. One day, she showed up unannounced and started saying we could go to counseling, that she'd change. But I was done. I told her she had 2 options. Either she could leave on her own, or I'd get a restraining order. She looked shocked, like she hadn't expected me to stand my ground. When she didn't move out fast enough, I took legal action and served her an eviction notice. I even hired movers to pack up her things. I wanted every trace of her gone. Watching her belongings being taken out was like watching the last chapter close on a life that was never really mine. Megan had one last trick up her sleeve. She went around telling our friends that I'd emotionally abandoned her, that the pressures of my job had driven her to it. She tried to make people think it was my fault, that she'd been forced into it because I was never around. But I'd shared the footage with everyone close to us. No one bought her story. They saw through her lies, her excuses. Megan ended up with no sympathy and even fewer friends. I put the house up for sale after that. I needed a clean slate, a fresh start. Every room in that house felt tainted by what had happened. Selling it was like finally cutting the last tie to the life I'd left behind. As for Tom, his life unraveled even more. Linda left him and took the kids, moving back to her parents' place. She didn't stay quiet about why she was leaving either. She let everyone know exactly what kind of man Tom was. Clients kept dropping him, neighbors avoided him, and he'd lost any semblance of a social life. He tried reaching out to me to talk it over, but I wasn't interested. He'd destroyed my marriage, and he could live with the consequences. The whole experience was brutal, but in the end, it taught me more than I'd ever wanted to know. Betrayal strips away everything. Your trust, your memories, even your own self-respect if you're not careful. Megan and Tom thought they could get away with it, that I'd just roll over and forgive them. They thought they were clever, that I'd never find out, or that even if I did, they could spin it in their favor. But in the end, they were just 2 people who lost everything because of their own selfishness. Selling the house and leaving that life behind was the best decision I ever made. I moved to a new city, found a job that gave me stability, and started rebuilding with friends who actually cared about me. I realized that while betrayal can tear you down, it doesn't have to keep you there. Now I've built a life without them, a life where I know I'm better off without the lies, the manipulation, and the fake loyalty. For anyone dealing with betrayal, I'll say this: don't let them make you feel weak. Walk away, rebuild, and remember that moving forward is the best revenge you can ever have.